Hello and welcome to Rule of Carnage. This is a podcast where Glenn Ford, a games designer and developer, and me, Mike Hutchinson, a games designer and developer, talk about designing better miniature games. Shock horror. Today we will not be talking about designing better miniature games. We'll be talking about what we have been designing in whatever shocking format they're currently in. Because it's been a little while since we've just had a little chat about what we are up to and what we're working on. So I thought we would, now that we've drained our glasses, we will kick our slippers off and have a little chat about what we're up to. Um, Glenn, what you cooking up at the moment? What's dragging your focus mostly?
Um, well, interestingly, just a day or two ago, since before having this conversation, I was having a chat with the splendid people at Exalted Funeral in relation to
Mm.
Apocalypse. That it's now going off to the actual printers, and so I've been having chats with marketing people and retail distribution liaison people. And so on a more sort of prosaic level, one of the things I'm doing is I'm writing some production copy and an article to go into a trade magazine for a distribution center, people, organization of some sort.
Hmm.
So that's a fun little thing. So I'm going to do a little article, um, sort of about the we in-game converting and kit bashing of
Hmm.
Puke Apocalypse. Also related to that, I'm starting to put together a expanded expansion, expanded campaign system for Puke Apocalypse, because the guys
Nice.
are interested in doing more things with it and putting out more stuff and having a little range in a world. And I had an idea anyway of what I thought I would like a Puke Apocalypse sort of more full-blooded campaign system to be.
Very
Um,
cool.
and then the person who liaises with distributors was like, oh, "Can you play this solo? Because solo is very big at the moment." I was like, "I think you could, but I don't know what that would look like." And I'm like, "Can I play Puke Apocalypse solo? How would that work? Would it make
Mm.
sense? Can I make that a thing?" So that's a thing that like
I'd
2
like to do
days ago.
puke tricks, like see if I can get through a burning hoop by puking myself up high enough or whatever.
Well, yeah, because there's all that because there is actually flicking puke tokens, and there is a dexterity thing, and is it about like puzzling with puke tokens? But then scumbags die so fast. Is that going to be interesting? There's already AI like wandering bastards in it, so is it like a whole bunch of wandering bastards come at you, and we give them a more complex AI system? That is a thing that I'm thinking about at the moment. Uh,
Nice.
I've
Are you ready to talk about the campaign system, or is it? I'm
um
intrigued.
yeah. So what I'm doing for it. So a couple of things. Inherently, one of the things I I keep trying to build into Puke Apocalypse is the craft and hobby as part of the mechanics.
Mm.
So the setting for what is currently being called spelunking in a giant's colon is that a massive, like freakish town-sized mutant blobby thingama like lurches out of the acid sea and dies, and has like multiple heads and multiple arms and multiple sets of genitals, and ergo, given that it's the size of a town, has somewhere within it multiple bladders full of precious piss.
Ah.
And so some people like mine the surface bladders, but maybe there are some deeper in. So your dutiful scumbags go tunneling into the huge giant through whichever orifice they can find, and like encounter each other and claim bits of territory. And whoever claims, at the moment it's 3 bladders, wins the campaign. And like part of that is that as you claim more territory, they each bit of territory adds in a problem that you have to deal with while you're playing. So it
Mm.
gives inherent headwind because campaigns that snowball are disastrous. So I want to make it a campaign where, of course, you're going to try and win because you're going to try and win, and winning makes life harder for you. So we can headwind instead of snowball.
Yep.
And what you do is you get a massive bit of paper and you draw a big circle with whichever openings you're entering the
Mm.
giant on around the edge of the circle, and then each campaign phase you draw on whichever organ you have encountered with some little openings off it, and you draw out the innards of the giant as you are playing, and you roll on a table, and that tells you if you're going to discover a stomach or a gallbladder, or something that's going to lead to a bladder. And so the hobbying and drawing and doing a little, I'm going to draw a kidney here and I'm going to draw a stomach split split split, is part of the campaign, because I want people to enjoy drawing a weird massive mutant thing, and that to have like weight within the game.
Feels like if you can get the illustrator to provide like simple sort of icons for each of the organs so that I don't have to imagine what a gallbladder looks like. There's just like there's a crappily drawn one that I can copy. A bit like, oh yeah, okay, I can copy that.
Yeah, to be fair, I don't think there's actually a gallbladder in it. I think the organs are the more standard, like liver, kidney, stomach, bowels or whatever. But yeah, I'll at least draw my own version of it,
Yeah.
take a photo of that and put that in there. So, and then there's like, I'm doing a few more cliques, or at least I've thought of good punny names for a few more cliques and roughly what they might do.
That for Glenn is almost enough for the faction.
that's
Have I
that's
got a good pun or I've got a faction?
very much step one of the process. Good weird pun. It's like I was writing the production copy. Actually, I was writing the branding guide for Puke Apocalypse,
Mm,
and sort of like putting down the things to guide other creatives in doing things like within that world. And one of the bits is, you know, if it's got some weird British innuendo in it, it's probably about right. That's
yeah.
probably the ballpark. So yeah, I'm sort of putting together the bits of some teams and some upgrades and like a map building thing for that. Um, Starting at least mentally to kick around a solo mode for it. And hopefully, once I get my gaming table cleared off from the colonization of it by some old Warhammer Fantasy Battle models for a video that I'm working on for the channel, I'll get back to playtesting both Borders and Black Flags and Playlandia,
Mm.
which hopefully is gonna, I'm gonna go back to the publisher who was interested in it 8 months ago,
Find
and
out if
check
he's
that
still
they're still
interested.
interested in it now that I've made it into a full thing. How about the mic zone? What have you been? I know obviously you've been working on Chess 28 as you've videographed it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, so there's a couple of deadlines that I'm working on at the moment. One is the Pacific Command rulebook, which gets delivered imminently, and the other is the book, another book that we're working on, and which we haven't really talked about on this channel yet. It's
Yeah.
probably maybe this conversation to talk about it. But with all of that work going on, I have basically not had a ton of time to do any specific like sustained game design. So I've just been putting out like brain farts and prototypes, of which Flagstone, a Chess 28 game, was the most recent one, which actually got an opportunity to playtest quite a bit over the last week. Or rather, I have playtested it with 3 different individuals, which is good. So that's given me um, quite a good sense of like how different people will approach this game. So that's good. I think there's something there in Flagstone. It's feeling pretty interesting. It's in that like glorious phase where the rule system basically works. The factions are sort of half made up and definitely not balanced. And there's just a load of playtesting, balancing, and content to be written that I haven't had to do yet. So that's wonderful because that's where all the work is.
Yeah, yeah, that's the grind of
Yeah, exactly.
doing game.
But it's in a cool place now where like it emerged from my brain fairly fully formed. But the first few playtests illustrated quite quickly where the sort of the the grimy bits of the mechanics were, and so I've just been buffing some of those edges off. But there's not very many mechanics, so there's not many edges to buff. So that's been quite efficient. But I've also been, just pootling about with a bunch of other designs which have mostly made it into, a couple of them have made it into prototype form on my itch page, which is the Rotwalden Realms of Carnage, which is essentially a reskin of Mystic Skies, but with a more straight up sort of dark fantasy vibe. And I don't know, I'm just playing that again. Oh, and a new victory condition system put in as well. And playing that again has made me remember how much I liked as a solution to the challenge of summoning games, and sort of having a very video gamey type sort of victory condition with its tower defense. I think there's a lot of gameplay juice to be squeezed from that. The other thing that I've been working on that I haven't put out anywhere yet is the Incunabula, which is my kind of, I've talked about it a bit as like my attempt to make a skirmish game that I am like, a 28 mil skirmish game that I am actually like, that I feel needs to exist, because I haven't really written any 28 mil skirmish games, because boy howdy are there a lot of 28 mil skirmish games, and finding what it is that I want to say about 28 mil skirmish games is proving, a journey. But I'm quite close now to having something ready there. And then the other thing that I've got as far as the protesting table that hasn't been written up yet is, um, I have got I've got a lot of enthusiasm for the vast quantity of X-Wing miniatures that are gathering dust in people's cupboards. I know some people are still playing X-Wing, and that's fine. But that the enthusiasm and the investment that a certain class of gamer had in the first edition, and they haven't really re-engaged with that game. Um, I'm excited to do something with those spaceships, and I've been oscillating between A Billion Suns, the Fringe expansion being the thing that's like the perfect thing to do with your X-Wing miniatures, or something which I've been calling Junk Space, which is like, well, what if people who hoped that A Billion Suns would be Gaslands in space actually got what they wanted? And so that would be very much like, I went back and watched Firefly and stuff. It would be like, what would it be like to have like two or three spaceships which are your like post-apocalyptic sort of, Wild West crew, and you're like scrapping for scraps, and there's a campaign system that's very built into it. And so, you know it's miniature agnostic insofar as like I want you to take whatever, X-wing miniatures, or whatever sort of starfighter kind of miniatures you've got, and build a little kind of yeah, loot scoot and shoot kind of a campaign game. So that's like the basic system for that is there. And what's fun about these games is that because I'm not committing to any of them pushing into production right now, what's happening is by working on all of them at the same time, they're kind of cross-pollinating with ideas, and something that I'll be working on with regards to like, an activation system, or an initiative system will like inspire another experiment in the next door game, and that will go back round again. So I'm kind of almost deliberately not crystallizing any of them too early, because I don't need to crystallize them, and they're quite fertile kind of gene pools at the moment.
Yeah, I think it's funny, like at the moment that for myself that I've got like because I've got a few things that are going to be like going somewhere production wise within the relatively near future. I've
Mm.
got a bunch of other like things I want to get to that are like in the more sort of nebulous sort of form, but the actual publishers are saying, "Could you write something for me?" goes like, well, they that goes into the front of the
Yes,
queue.
it does.
Because I've still got like there's a bunch of non-combat things that I've got. It's clearly a thing I want to do,
Mm,
and I'm halfway through. Like there's the PG Woodhouse game that I'm like halfway through or three quarters of way through of a like full rewrite
mm,
on a version of it I'm really happy with. There's like a thing that I'm currently calling Gnome Hike that is like my one-to-one scale. I'm really fascinated by one-to-one scale as a concept.
mm,
A one-to-one scale journaling RPG of a family-friendly co-op miniatures game.
hmm.
And the thing that I mentioned to you before about the cinematic view, and the visual nature of things, which are all of which I really want to get to.
Does that have a name yet? That
Well,
third one.
well, at the moment it's WOWLAND. It's called WOWLAND. Um, there was something to do with Underland pun, which I can't currently remember, but that's the working title of it.
I
Well,
see.
it's like currently what it is my old Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas two-pager,
Mm,
sort of with a lot of title, you know, titles and names and ideas sort of spluffed around it, going, this guy is probably going to be a character within this game now, and
mm,
this will be a game, but he might not, and we'll see how that goes. But it's like every now and again I go, yeah, that's a thing that I really really want to do, and I don't know what I'm going to do with it.
mm,
Um, and what I think probably is like because I'm going to kickstart Borders and Black Flags, hopefully, fingers crossed, end of this year. And I'd like to do the PG Woodhouse game next year. And I probably want to try and do. I've got an idea for a Weird West game the year after that. And then probably, if things are going well, the year after that would be the time to do the one of the weird non-violent things. But I reckon I might be able to, if I get into a shape, um, suggest the idea of the cinematic view thing to the guys at funeral.
mm.
Partly because the inspiration to make it into a full game was I'm not going to get the name right because it's an odd name, but they've got an RPG called like Electric Wonderland or something like that. I'll look it up and put the name on screen, which is this. It's an RPG where you start in one spot and then you go to another, but it's about the crap that distracts you on the way
Mm.
is the real game. And thinking about that, like because it's an RPG about the way that sometimes in an open world game you're going over to like the mission you're supposed to be doing, then you look
Yeah.
over there as a really weird looking ladder of like bridge that seems to be made of like a monster, and there seem to be people and it's like bin off the quest, we're going to go and investigate that bridge. And I want the game to be something about that feeling of looking into the distance, seeing something weird and going, that's the thing. So I might be
Mm.
able to like settle them on it as um, related to RPGs that they've already got. I don't know. I'll see. I need to
Yeah.
write the damn thing. I just don't know it's going to even work at the moment. So
Yeah. Well, I suppose I should say I've been doing a bit of proposal writing for my mainline games. So I've nothing specific to report on Gaslands other than obviously I would like to do some more Gaslands, and I am currently having conversations about doing more Gaslands, but more details will emerge as they emerge. Um, what's probably more uh, less nebulous is I've been writing a proposal for a second edition of A Billion Suns. Um, and what I am thinking about, the way I'm framing it, having had a bunch of different conversations and trying it out, is I think the way that I'm thinking about second edition Billion Suns as a proposal is first edition Billion Suns was like almost a concept piece, and it had a very strong identity of its own. And the main complaint that players have is that it isn't insert the thing that they wanted a spaceship game to be. And so I think as I get closer to being able to release the Fringe, like the third contract set, um, um, I've been, I guess, just I've been getting to the point where I'm quite excited to have a version of A Billion Suns, which, if I can convince Osprey to do a slightly bigger, more spacious version, as you know, Refueled was to the Blue Book of Gaslands, um, then I think it could be a more general toolkit, and it could be that A Billion Suns provides a more general toolkit for lots of different kinds of spaceship gaming, or at least three or potentially five kinds of spaceship gaming, and to keep all of the options and the ways that you are able to play the game now, so that the idea of unlimited forces and being able to pay over the odds to bring in whatever you want could be like an unlimited mode, whereas you could have a limited mode where you build a force list and you have force, you choose how much of that force to bring in. And that's actually how Rotvolden has been sort of handling summoning, and it's worked quite nicely. And the idea of the core systems being the very tactical, very narrative, very kind of uh doing jobs thing versus Warzone being much more of like a heads up, a straight ahead battle game. I'm more confident about all of this now because the game has established itself as, a strange, innovative way of approaching miniature games. So I'm less afraid to give people the boring way of playing and have them forget or have them ignore the fact that there's an interesting way to play. That's a bit dismissive, but I guess what I also want to say is, like, there was a moment recently where you were talking about how lots of different versions of a game can exist, and sometimes I feel sad about the versions of games that didn't exist. And I went back in preparing this proposal, I went all the way back to my initial notes for the game, and there's a couple of places where the game didn't go, and one of them is I would like a very mass battle game with spaceships, and another is I would like quite a detailed capital ship game that's a bit like Man of War and has like hit locations and stuff. And so to a degree, it's like going back and going, well, how much flexibility can I build into this game as a toolkit so that A Billion Suns becomes like, Offspray's kind of like, general purpose spaceship gaming, toolbox, and it has three or five ways of playing, all of which are, very enjoyable. But it almost just solves that problem of like, well, I like spaceship gaming and I bought A Billion Suns, but it didn't do X.
Mm. Yeah, no, I've like had a few conversations. I told you I was at a convention where a guy was like, I got a billion sons and and he was really apologetic. He was, I'm so sorry, and I don't mean to be any kind of way about it, but it didn't do any of the things I wanted it to do. I liked, and he said that another game, I was like, yeah, if you're looking for another one of these that is like not supported and you're sad it's not supported, yeah, A Billion Suns was never going to be that for you. It's not even the ballpark. It's not even trying to do those things. And I said, oh, you might want to try this, this, that, or the other because those are. And it's like we had this conversation before where it's like if there's a version of A Billion Suns which is like you pick a fleet list and then you play with it, will that be like the old school? That'd be like, well, that's the training wheels version.
Yeah.
I play full version of Billion.
Yeah, well, that's what I was thinking because, like, because it's all like corporate space stuff. So I was thinking of like, you get a limited company or you get an unlimited company, and the unlimited company has all the money. Or maybe it's a promotion, and like, if you're like if you're like a department head, you have a limited budget, but if you're like a managing director, you get the full unfettered access to the purse. Yeah, so that's been fun thinking about the game in a fresh with a fresh framing of like what does it offer to the player. And also thinking about like, well, what would it look like if my objective as a player, let's say, is to enjoy the nice silhouette and dice attacking mechanic and the um and the placing of like command helm stuff. Like, can those two things satisfy a certain kind of gamer by providing enough loveliness and a swift and smooth game experience? And is there anything missing from them where it's just like, well, this doesn't have inertial movement, so it's just never going to be my game? And that might be the place where I draw the line. But
Yeah, I know it's weird because there's so much that A Billion Suns is already, I think, such a toolbox that you almost want to like do a 300-page thing of different like scenarios and scenario setups, and here's the layout at the start, and this is where they start, and this is where you start, and here's
It
the
is a
kettle
toolbox, but
run.
it's also quite procedural and emergent.
Hmm.
And I think that that's one of its flaws for us for a for a very many number of players, which is it's not helpful enough in explaining itself. And so I think there's a version of A Billion Suns that's both broader in its utility, but also just has a much nicer bedside manner.
Yeah, it's a very unapologetic game, and it's like it. You often joked about it being the difficult second album, and sometimes I look at A Billion Suns, and it's almost like you. There are places where you're almost going like, "Yeah, screw you.
Yeah,
This
yeah,
is
no,
what I'm doing.
definitely.
No, I'm not
Yeah,
doing
exactly.
that."
So like a slightly more confidence or a slightly less self conscious version of that game where I'm just like, hell yeah, let's just make the raddest spaceship game sort of piece of software. I think that yeah, that for me, I mean, that seems like a workable proposal. Let's put it that way.
Excellent. I mean, that's all the minis games I'm working on at the moment.
Hmm.
I've got to polish up the next SSO expansion ready for a
Hmm.
Kickstarter later this year, and I'm meant to be playtesting a deck builder that I promised somebody I would design for a thing, but I'm just
Nice.
I'm just not getting around to it, which is awful. But we'll see. I wanted to be able to pitch it around at UKGE, so hopefully that'll be a deadline to get me moving on it.
Oh yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. So also, I've got a few miniatures still to paint for the Hobgoblin armies. I've got two painted armies here for Salute, and they will join us at UKGE as well. Um, I've got an inkling to make a new Gaslands display board, but it won't happen by Salute. But like, we don't need a new display board for Gaslands. But I've been working on a fair bit of like making terrain and boards and stuff. And
I
so
I
if
have
the muse hits me, I might make something a bit more elaborate and eye-catching.
the convention display boards and display games are such an odd piece of performance art to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I often see them and I'm like, that's an incredible like undertaking, and I hope you're going to recycle it into your next one of these. But do you just do this like 8 foot by 6 foot like full display thing, like moving stuff, and then like you win a prize at this convention, and then you just trash it, or what's the? I don't know because it's not
Probably. I mean, you like the reason it goes in a skip is that they're completely impractical to store.
exactly, yeah. And it's like once or twice, like we've turned up to conventions where you've had like oh, this is a nice Gaslands board with 2 levels. And then the guy on the next table has got this thing where you press a button and a rocket goes with like music and everything out in the middle of the table. And the whole thing like folds out as it's like, Jesus. That's,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
there's people on another level with this stuff. But yeah, practicality is usually my rule for boards at conventions and demo and setup.
Yeah, I mean, I understand that. I think eye-catchingness is super important. Like that's literally the point of going to a convention is to catch people's eyes.
Yeah, no, I mean absolutely, but it's different ways of achieving it.
Yeah, I haven't managed to figure out what the most eye-catching way of presenting A Billion Suns is. Like in my mind, I have like a three-tier cake stand of like rotating black circles, and you can like play across that. But I just haven't got around to building something that elaborate.
I don't know how to present A Billion Suns at conventions. A quick apology, I find, is a good opener.
No, it's very simple, Glenn. Just read the quick start rules and explain the quick start rules to them and go no further.
No, I know, and I have said about doing that now, and it has been effective, but it's not like with Gaslands.
No, Gaslands is easier to get across,
So that is what we are doing at the moment.
which is what we are or slash will be.
That
doing?
is some of the things we are doing, some of the things we have talked about, and some of the things we have glossed over for the moment. But we might talk about them in future episodes. We shall see. If you're watching this, you might well be working on designing your own game. Why not swing down to the comment section and tell us about it? You might also be excited and thrilled about some of the things that we've talked about. Definitely tell us about that because we need all the encouragement we can get. If you're down there saying those nice things to us, please do be nice to us and encourage us by hitting the like and subscribe buttons as well.
All hail the algorithm.
The algorithm is king. Just above those buttons is a set of links, one of which is to our Discord, where you can come in and chat to us about these things that we're working on and chat to us about things that you're working on. And it's also a link to Mike's Patreon, where you can go by and you can give him money for having worked on some of the things that he's talked about working on, encourage him to work harder on them, and encourage him to work on new things that you will get first for being a Patreonizer. But for now, I think from this episode of Rule of Carnage, it's going to be one of those thank yous and goodbyes. So a thank you and goodbye.
Bye. Thanks. Bye.